Something for nothing Britain. We're going to be picking that apart later. Apparently everybody got used to furlough and doesn't want it to end. Monday's Telegraph has the National Grid, says ready to pay customers to switch off. Monday's Guardian has Britain forecast to reach £1 trillion export target 15 years late in the wake of Brexit. If it's not climate change, it's Brexit causing misery in the Guardian. Monday's Mirror has a useful guide for Tories. They still don't get it. I don't know what that's about, but we'll find out soon. The Express has Boris back in the front line. That's him back in Ukraine and back on the front page. The Sun has Britain's Got Talent pay war. Apparently the two women are upset that newcomer Bruno is on the same pay as them. Never mind the gender pay gap in men's favour. They're upset it's not in women's favour. And Monday's Metro has Boris Bank Chum. That's a little pun on BBC. Don't do any other puns on BBC. You'll get yourself into trouble on YouTube, on Google. Monday Star has fury at price rises taking the peas. And those were your front pages. Let's have a look at those front pages in some more detail. We begin with the Express, Josh.
This is sad.
Why? What is it?
This is just sad.
What is it? Tell us what it is.
Boris back on the front line. You know what this is? This is like the former captain of the football team visiting his old school. Does anybody remember me?
Tell us.
Hey, do you know who it is?
Tell us what the story is, Josh.
Well, it's back on the front line. He's gone back to Ukraine. I thought we'd there's a picture of him there with Zelensky and his just desperation to remain relevant.
This is not his desperation to remain relevant. This is him going across to Ukraine to raise awareness and force Germany. So Germany is refusing to allow any Leopard tanks. Germany produces these Leopard tanks, which are really, really good. They're designed for fighting Russia, basically. They're designed for fighting across, Ukrainian soil, essentially. And they've sold them to Poland, Spain, all these countries.
And you think that Germany are going to do it because Boris has gone over to Ukraine?
Yes, they will. Yes, they will.
No,
I guarantee you. In fact, I think they're already folding because of the pressure Boris
because of
and
Boris.
other people. Yeah, pretty much because of Boris. Boris has always been out in front.
Pledged Britain's backing would last as long as it would take. He's not in a position to pledge anything. He's not our Prime Minister.
Well,
what's he doing? He's a backbencher.
Wait a couple of years, Josh, and he might be our Prime Minister again.
Weeks.
For all the criticism of Boris, I think one thing we can respect him for is the pressure he's brought on other Western countries to stand up and actually provide arms.
I agree with you. In the past,
Ukraine.
I just don't think that that's relevant right now.
Well, I think it is relevant right now.
He's the former captain of the football team.
Rishi
he's now
seem to be
68 years old and he's rocking back up. Do you remember me?
Paul, you can inject some sense.
I will try. Yeah, I was quite interested to watch that play out. I felt like I was watching headliners then for a moment. I slightly disagree with Josh there. It's good that he's gone out there from my perspective because for whatever reason, Boris seems to still carry a lot of political weight in Europe. And to see Boris in front of Zelensky again is probably a good thing on the back of this German issue with the tanks. And you know what, Germany, I don't know what they're hiding from. I don't know what they're waiting for because it's inevitable.
They're being cowards.
Well, the German strategy, and they've actually pretty much announced this. The German strategy is to tease the war out, so it wears Russia down and depletes all their men, their resources, their weaponry. Yeah. But the problem with that is it's also depleting Ukrainian men.
A quarter of a million people have now been killed. In the war. It's disgusting what Germany's doing, and it's cowardice.
Yeah. So you're glad Boris is out there?
No, I'm not. I just don't think he's out there for Boris. He ain't out there for Ukraine.
Yeah, and I'm going to say that I've seen a lot of people on the right. I've disagreed with a lot of people on my fellow Conservatives who say, "Oh, we're saying all this money, all this aid," and it's not really.
Yeah, it's to help us.
Yeah, but it's to help us. We're not, it's not British men or American men dying, and also it's not really. It's weaponry that would be decommissioned.
Yeah,
it's out of date. We're going to replenish our stocks.
Absolutely.
This is weaponry that we'd have to pay to keep in storage. So actually, it's kind of saving us money. It's a garage sale for us.
Absolutely. It's our first line of defence because we're not having to fight the war directly, and it is, our sort of B and C stock essentially.
Yeah.
It's stuff that hasn't been tested in anger that we can now use the war to test.
It's good. It's almost like recycling, really.
Yeah. And the Conservatives, again, ahead of Labour on recycling. Next up is the Daily Mail, Paul.
Yeah, shocking rise of something for nothing Britain. Well, it doesn't sit comfortably with this to me. I mean, it's interesting that it's in the Daily Mail, but this should be of no surprise. This headline assumes we've forgotten the last 3 years. One of the reasons we find ourselves reliant on the state as much as we do is because we were asked to for years on end.
But this story is about, so the over half of households, for the first time ever in Britain, over half of households are dependent on the state. This is, I mean, it's shocking. 36 million people now claim more in benefits than they pay in tax. I mean, I don't know why you'd claim in benefits and be paying tax. It seems like...
It's interesting, yeah.
It seems weird to me. How about we just pay less tax and then claim less benefits?
Well, it's working tax credits, and the idea is to keep people in employment, paying some tax and get some money back from the government.
But it just seems robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Well, also,
it's like robbing Peter to pay Peter.
And also utilising the NHS and all the other costs and all the other benefits that you get from living in a country that pays for, you know, the government pays for these things.
Well, I mean, the trouble is the government isn't paying for it. It's a lot of high-earning taxpayers are paying for it. So the top 10% of earners account for 53% of all income tax. So if tax goes up, those people could leave, and then, you know, who's going to pay for all our allegedly free stuff?
I sit in the middle on this. I'm kind of glad that people can. We've created this situation though. This all goes back to COVID. It all goes back to our reaction to COVID, not just us in the UK, the Western reaction to COVID, and as a result, more people lost their jobs.
Yeah.
And have not been able to find their way back into work because it's been followed swiftly by a cost of living crisis in which people aren't employing anybody.
I'd say actually the problem goes pre-COVID. I think
I think British people have been quite lazy for a while.
I mean,
I agree with you, Josh.
It's not
that's what Josh was saying.
No, you know what? I think that there is a balance to be had. And yes, but why do people who are super rich pay more taxes? The idea is that to live in a economy where they can earn that money in the first place and live a good life, and we have social coherency.
I don't think taxing people to pay for an equality, diversity and inclusion department means that...
I'm not saying that money's all been spent well.
None of it is.
No, that's not true. Some of it is. No, some of it is on the NHS. It's absolutely spent well, but not all of it. And I agree with you, there's still... You know, look, I'm someone who's recently flipped from paying now more tax than I obviously was getting back from like being on tax credits and actually paying that tax. I'm glad to do so. I'm grateful now. Finally, I feel less guilty. Yeah. And I want to be. But what I want
to pull that ladder up behind you. Don't you?
No, what I want to ensure is that money now, that surplus money that I'm putting back into the system,
is spent well.
Is spent well. Yeah. Exactly.
Great. Well, anyway, we move on.
Best friends forever.
Yeah, we move on to The Guardian, Josh.
Yes, so the big one here is Britain forecasts to reach 1 trillion export target 15 years late in wake of Brexit. Brexit, everyone's favourite conversation. So this was a target that was actually set by David Cameron, and then Boris Johnson brought it back. And we're actually, believe it or not, we're selling, we have less money that's going out. So last year, 739 billion export. Next year, it's going to be 707 billion.
There was a pandemic, so...
Yeah, but...
I don't think we can blame all the supply chain issues and the economic impact of the pandemic on Brexit.
1 in 8 small exporters have temporarily or permanently stopped sales to the EU. That's because of red tape that needs to be sorted out. And a further 1 in 10. People's businesses have closed. There's no doubt that Brexit has had an impact. We're the only economy in Europe that still haven't reached our pre-pandemic levels. Of course it's had an impact.
But, Paul, I mean, Brexit wasn't about improving the economy. Brexit was about making Guardian readers cry.
You say that now.
It was about making Guardian readers cry.
Largely it was, yeah. Both you and I are Remainers. But I'm going to, you know...
Not anymore, I'm not. I want to leave even harder now.
We vote to leave now purely because of the reaction that it would induce. However, this was always inevitable, and I don't think this is a fair measure. And Brexit is causing this. However, I don't think there is a political side, that would argue against that. I even think the Conservatives want to remove a lot of that red tape, want to renegotiate the Brexit deal so we can go forward and operate better. Now, a lot of people will say, and many people on the side that I voted will say, well, this is the mess that we created, therefore... this is where we find ourselves, is the bed we lie in. Yeah. However, we all agree, I think, that improvements need to be made.
Yeah, but I totally disagree with you, Paul, because Conservatives, yes, Rishi Sunak does want to do this red tape, but the problem is he's still beholden to the nutters in the Tory party who are just like, you don't look at Brexit, whatever. No, this has to be sorted. People aren't being honest about what one of the major problems is. It's obviously Brexit. People know that now. All these reports have come out. Yeah, but let's just be honest about it so we can fix it.
The issue with Brexit has been that Europe is wanted to punish Britain for daring to leave and wanted
done.
to show other countries, you better not leave because we'll punish you as well. Now that the risk of that has receded, I think Europe's being a lot more. You see with the Northern Ireland.
Absolutely, but if
treaty.
we're not actually acknowledging what the problem is, and all I'm saying is that the major political parties, Conservatives and Labour, are not dealing with and not willing to, because it's such a toxic subject, they're not actually being honest about what one of these big problems is, and it's Brexit, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and also renegotiating Brexit is also incredibly boring. So we're going to move on to the Metro, Paul.
Oh, yes, Boris Bank Chum, BBC. Now, there's a little bit of apathy from me about this story because I kind of assume this stuff's going on anyway. And by the way, it doesn't just go on at Boris's. Now, this obviously you'll see it more at Boris's level where he's given his mates the chair of the BBC, but it happens at working class levels as well. You know, you help sign your mate's mortgage and he does the plastering for half price, whatever it might be. This is the grease that helps.
Will you be a guarantor of my mortgage, Paul?
Yes, but you probably don't want me to plaster your walls. But,
I think I'll be buying a caravan.
You can afford a caravan, can you, Lee? Oh, superb, mate. But, you know, this is a good political story, but I don't think it's a surprise that chums are helping one another out and scratching one another's back. Now, if you hate Boris and you hate the BBC, you will love this story. Yeah. However, I think what I'm trying to add is a bit of impartiality to this and say, actually, this sort of stuff goes on all the time. Now, this is 800 grand and a £170,000 a year job. Josh, what do you think about this?
That's my job.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Sorry, I'm right here.
Over to me, You're right, you answered terribly. Look, I don't hate Boris. I don't hate the BBC. But this is sleaze. It's evidence of it. And also, what is Boris spending all this money on?
Yeah. That's a good point. Why is he borrowing £1 million quid?
Free wallpaper.
I can answer that. It starts with Carrie and ends with whatever Carrie's second name is.
Also, kids. He's got
a lot of kids.
But he's not paying rent. You know, he's living in friends' rich houses and whatnot. I mean, it's endless. But also, here he is. He's on the front page of, all of these papers, I think? Yeah, all 4 of these papers. He's in one way or another on the front page.
Back on the front page. So, yeah, but this just, I mean, I'd have thought the issue with a loan, it would be more of an issue if he didn't pay it back. I can't see that there's an issue of getting a loan and having a rich mate be a guarantor for it. That's what rich mates are for. Anyway, that's it for part 1. Coming up, we're going to discuss rich people paying more tax, gaslighting female police officers, and deepfake elections. See you in a couple of minutes.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm joined by top UK comedy circuit comedians Josh Howie and Paul Cox. Let's continue with the stories, though, kicking off with The Independent, and it's a taxing time for Rishi, who's being grilled over what he knew about his pal Zahawi's tax evasion. Paul, that's the word I've just made up, avoision.
More jobs for the boys here. Labour has demanded that Rishi Sunak come clean over Nadeem Zahawi's tax affairs. Deputy Leader Angela Rayner, who terrifies me, by the way, said the Prime Minister must reveal what he knew about Mr Zahawi's settlement with HM Revenue and Customs when he appointed the Conservative Party chairman in October. See, this for me, I'm kind of conflicted on this. Part of me definitely believes that we shouldn't know everybody. You know, I'm a bit of a libertarian. I don't want too much government. I don't want everyone to know everyone's business. However, this was a man who appears to have tried to diddle his taxes to the tune of £1 million something, and he was the Chancellor. And
he was the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the top man. The buck stops with him when it comes to the revenue.
So Angela Rayner has a good point here.
Yeah.
And she's right to ask the questions. And the reason she's asking this particular question is because nobody ever answers the original question. I always think with politics, if in the first place someone just ripped the Band-Aid off and said, oh, it was 1.2 million, I messed up. You know, it's 1.2 million of £500 million I made that year. These things happen when you're wealthy.
Yeah.
If he said that... And,
yeah, if he come out and said, listen, self-assessment forms are really, really complicated.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry I put you through this every year, and we're going to change it so it's only got 3 buttons to press in the form.
Better.
That would be what I'd want to hear. I mean, Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, the idea, he said it's a careless error, like he did it or he's personally responsible.
Not at all.
He's got accountants.
Yeah.
That's what
he's got better than accountants. He's got the actual, like, HMRC.
Yeah. He's got the real people. The idea that this just accidentally happened is ridiculous. That's the first thing. It's a shame that we can't get... I was hoping we could get Jimmy Carr on to talk about this.
Yeah.
Give us his lowdown on the taxes.
Fly in from the Cayman Islands and tell us.
But I've seen some, like, there was I think it was a defence minister was sent out today and to defend him on the BBC and whatnot, and he was to say, the problem, look, guys, he's really successful. This is great. He's paying it. Look at all the taxes he's paid. It's like, well, here's the point. He wasn't paying the taxes, and he was the Chancellor at the time. So there are some big elements to the story, and this element of the story is all about whether Sunak knew or not. They're actually saying,
and of course, Sunak himself had tax issues. His wife was registered non-dom. I mean, the bare
legal,
minimum. But the bare minimum I expect of a cabinet politician is that them and their family are actually,
pay taxes.
Pay taxes in the UK and live in the UK. I mean, she's living in the UK.
And wear seatbelts?
I'm not that bothered about the seatbelts. No. And also, Rishi, up until a few years ago, had a green card for America. So it's like, do you want to... Are you just a globalist who lives in every country, or are you British and you live in Britain?
They're afraid of the truth, aren't they? They could surprise people with the truth. If they just said, yes, I have messed this up. Yes, I earn lots of money. Yes, I could have done better.
Yes, leave me alone, you plebs. Anyway... Talking of economics, when I see the words Guardian and economics together, I know I'm in for some top-tier idiocy. Here the Guardian says we should encourage rich people to leave the country and stop our most productive workers from working, Josh. Well, you probably agree with this economic illiteracy.
That's not exactly what they were saying. Joseph Stiglitz, who is a Nobel Prize-winning economist, says the headline, tax high earners at 70% to tackle widening inequality. This isn't about the UK, it's actually about they're talking about this more for America. But it's an interesting idea.
Interesting?
Well, because there is a point at which we're not talking about people who earn like $1 million or $2 million or whatever. We're talking about these giant wealth funds, these fortunes, essentially, is how they refer to it. And what happens is when that fortune gets to a certain amount, it starts generating its own fortune. Yeah, is the idea. And certainly when it becomes
wealth.
Which
is a good thing.
Yeah, which is a good thing for nothing. But the point is that this whole idea of trickle-down economics isn't working. We now have evidence of that, where we're living in a time where the top people are earning more and the bottom people for the first time are earning less.
We absolutely have proof that the trickle-down economics works, capitalism works, and the replacement that the Guardian wants, where this egalitarian thing where we just spread the wealth and everybody's equal. We've tried it in the Soviet Union.
It's not the Guardian. They're
North Korea.
They're reporting a story here.
Yeah, come on. Why do they pick this to report? They're pushing this agenda. It's ridiculous. Left-wing people just see wealth as a finite resource to be distributed like slices of cake at a birthday. It's not. It's something that can be generated. And rich people, wealthy people, these hedge funds, Elon Musk, rich people like that are actually really good at apportioning capital to generate wealth, generate jobs. Yeah, super rich. Elon Musk.
2% for the super rich. It's enough to literally feed 2 billion people out of poverty.
Man, but then you couldn't. Then it's going to be governments are going to be responsible for actually distributing that cash. So it's not going. The issue isn't with. I mean, people always want a financial solution to a supply chain problem, and you can't magic more beans into people's mouths by just taxing people. It's ridiculous.
Well, they own all the beans, and it's a few people's mouths.
40% is fair. That's where I draw the line. I think 40% is fair. I think 70% is bordering on socialism.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, no, I didn't say it's 70%, you know.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know why I looked directly at you then, Josh. You were the only other...
I'm not a
You're not on the other side. What I'm saying is, for me, this is a step too far. I mean, you are right. This isn't the Guardian generating the story, but Leo is right that they are the one enjoying it the most. 70%... If you had 10 of everything and I took 7 away... You think that was theft?
And also, why would where's the incentive?
10,000 billion trillion.
Well,
yeah, but where's the incentive for people to go out and work if they're going to get 70% of what they earn taken off them? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you know what? This is the 70% I disagree with, but they are talking about having a couple of extra percent on top of these fortunes. That I can get behind.
I think we generate more wealth and solve more poverty if we lowered tax and stop wasting it on nonsensical government quangos and departments. Anyway, staying with The Guardian, we've got more reasons not to hire women. They don't get on board with workplace banter, Paul.
I don't know if that's the gist of the story. I'll tell you what the gist of the story is, though. I was gaslit by my own force. Female police report systematic abuse by male officers. This is in the wake again of David Carrick. Women from England and Wales have come forward to report mental, physical and professional toll. Despite having been a police officer, this is the particular person involved, despite having been a police officer and also married to one, Helen, not her real name, says she now wouldn't ring the police for anything.
Right.
I take issue with that.
What you needed a crime number?
Well, yeah, I don't know what you've written.
That's the only thing the police can actually do for you these days is give you a crime number. But
now, the Met, in particular, seems to be full to the brim with absolute wrong-uns. It does seem that way because I know it's just a very small percentage, but we can't conflate Carrick and Wayne Couzens, with every other officer, because that's not the way forward. I don't know how they're going to weed it out. They need to weed things out, and they perhaps need to vet better. But these two stories can be separated for me. It's conflating some sort of one opinion with fact, and the fact is that not every officer is a sexual deviant. Thank goodness, and we should be able to rely on our police force.
Kind of damning them with faint praise there, Paul.
Yeah, sorry. You should be glad that not every officer.
There's quite a few that aren't sexual deviants.
There are a lot of people that would enjoy the fact that the police force seems to be full of absolute wrong-uns at the moment.
Yeah.
I can't use any of the words I want to use, but there will be a lot of people that enjoy that. But I'm looking at the way forward from this point, and we have to be able to have a police force that we can trust. And constantly going on about that, them being full of wrong-uns, is not going to help that. This particular case for me is an ex-partner, and she's making a complaint about her ex-partner and the way that she was treated by him within the force. Now, I mean, I'm not sure I don't know if that story is valid or not, because it's conjecture, isn't it?
Right. Well, I mean, that seems to be you questioning the validity of it. But Josh, I mean, what do you take in this?
Well, look, I disagree. I think there are two different stories, but I don't think that this is what the story is saying at all. This isn't saying that all the police are wrong-uns or whatever. It's pointing out that there is a real problem within the police force of investigating itself. And it isn't just one example here. It's a bunch of people, and they're also saying it could be up to thousands, but there's about 200 who officially come forward.
Yeah.
And that indicates a much larger number of women working in the police force, people married to police officers or or divorce or whatever, and being subjected to either rape or physical abuse, domestic violence, and the police essentially not doing anything about it. So this is, and you know, how we deal with that is a real issue. Like it's a real problem. But I would argue that number one, police investigating themselves, that's probably not a good thing. Yeah. Secondly, and this was talked about earlier on Free Speech Nation, Julie Bennett was saying that there just has to be better protection for the people who do come forward, because in these examples that are given here, these people who've come forward, they ended up actually losing their jobs through coming forward. And that's a massive problem, because of course that sets an example for anybody else, and they'll go, you know what, I don't want to lose my job, I'm just going to not mention this. Yeah. And that's how these wrong-uns get away with it for so long, because they just don't want to, no one wants to be the...
And there is a tendency for the police to circle the wagons and protect their own.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
there's a lot of evidence that backs up what Josh says.
Yeah, if that culture could change. Anyway, moving on to the Telegraph, they report on the FBI searching President Biden's properties and finding even more classified documents, just like they did with Trump, Josh.
So, I'm just sort of imagining my Twitter feed after this story. FBI finds more classified files in President Joe Biden's home. So they found more. The first thing that makes me the question is, like, after they found a bunch in the past, I want to say, why would they not then Joe Biden go, you know what, I'm just going to go and pop and see if they've not missed anything. They didn't. They found 6 more documents.
I think he did have a look. And due to his confused
forgot about it.
He thought he'd gone in to make a cup of tea.
So this is the so they found 6 more documents containing classified markings. So it's not that the documents were. It could be that he'd sort of done some willy drawings and during his time in the Senate
that's the
or whatever it is.
Symbol.
So they found 6 more things. They haven't even said that these are 100%. They didn't say classified on them or anything like that. They just had classified markings on them.
Well, that's a classified marking. Then it says classified on it.
Top secret. My nan
has got classified marking,
and she didn't know where her classified documents were either. And I think that is the problem here. I'm almost getting to the point that I'm starting to miss the clarity that Trump brought. Because at least he knew where his stolen documents were, and that he actually had some.
Yeah, they were marked, stolen, big boxes.
And he had the presence of mind to try and stop the FBI searching his home to find them. They had to get a warrant. I mean, but the Democrats have been saying Trump should be jailed for having these classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, Biden now has classified documents in his, and more seem to be being revealed.
Yeah, but more, we're talking 6. The difference is that Trump took hundreds of records. We're talking here
about... He worked hard. Thanks for recognising his hard
So he classified with him, leaving them in there. Look, but there is hypocrisy in here, and this is what we need to do. But Biden is like going, you know what? Let's send he's already like assigned somebody to the task. They've taken charge, and let's investigate both these things properly and see what happens.
Yes, it's become a sort of political simultaneous equation where one is cancelling out the other, though. Now.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the Democrats tend to own the arms of the government agencies. So moving on to the Sun now, and artificial intelligence is giving us fake news footage, fake IDs, and even fake colleagues, Paul.
Well, yes, deepfake AI-generated people will be among us by 2024, and they will be nearly impossible to detect, a former White House official has warned. Now, I would argue they're already among us. I mean, I would argue that Nicola Sturgeon is actually AI-generated, because it's the most plausible reason for me to understand what...
Well, I'm not here. I'm at home playing my PlayStation.
Yeah,
there's a bit too much emphasis on the A and not enough on the I in the case of Nicola Sturgeon, then.
Terrifying.
She might be artificial, but she's not intelligent.
She seems to be playing some sort of game that I'm completely unaware of what a successful conclusion can be. Anyway...
Independence.
I'm not the big... Yes, but she's not going about it the right way, is she? I'm not the fan. We all know. People on Twitter, you know, I'm not a fan of Nicola Sturgeon. But this stuff is terrifying, though, isn't it?
Is it?
For me, it is. AI, well, not to the point that I'm not going to sleep tonight. But
because you've got an AI chatbot to lullaby you to sleep.
This was science fiction a matter of years ago, months ago. Whereas now it's completely among us, isn't it?
I mean, Josh, do you see this as a sort of Black Mirror dystopian?
Well, we're going to see all these unintended consequences. But I like how this article, in the Sun, talks about cybersecurity expert Teresa Payton, the first ever female White House Chief Information Officer. I love that was like a really big deal for them. Like,
the Sun's celebrating that glass ceiling being broken.
The first ever. Come on, America.
I'm not worried about AI robots, AI characters or anything, because you can tell the difference. If you kick them in the shins, They don't scream. That's how you tell. Anyway, that's it for part 2. In the next section, we're going to talk about lockdown sex parties, the dark world of sperm banks, and Sam Smith's frustration with the gender-neutral Brit Awards. See you in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Mirror reporting on MI6 spies getting their cover blown by dim-witted council jobsworths. Who needs Russian spies when you've got local authority dimwits, Josh?
Absolutely. MI6. I like to call it M16.
Isn't that a gun?
I don't know why that made me chuckle so much, but it did.
It's just something stupid. Shuts down top secret spy school after location accidentally revealed. And this is exactly what you're saying in the intro. Do not mess with the council. The local council...
Don't tell them anything.
Yeah, no one is safe from NIMBYism because this is what they've done. Since 2004, the secret spy training centre in Westminster, they've had like all the plans have just been on the file. Anybody could have found them. And they were sort of known as government offices, but... so now they're not using it, obviously, because they've sort of found another place. But I mean, how they're not going to learn from their mistakes. They've just moved somewhere else. Yeah, put up a dish.
Shouldn't they have just?
Well, the council published the plans and revealed all this. But local businesses had been complaining about electronic interference from all the spy stuff, all the James Bond Q stuff.
But they should have denied it, shouldn't they? We just immediately went, oh, yeah, sorry, it's been here about 16 years. Sorry about that. The first rule of, whatever, what was it called?
Spy Club.
The first rule of Spy Training Club is never admit that you're at Spy Training Club, surely. I mean, the fact that they were hiding in plain sight, but the fact the council knew about it.
Yeah.
Have you met a councillor?
Oh, yeah, I have. I've met people. I used to work for the council. And, yeah, don't tell them anything if you don't want everybody to know about it.
Exactly.
And especially if you tell them to keep it a secret, then it's definitely going to be revealed. Anyway, the Telegraph now and the Vatican, are investigating, if anyone can, Vatican, they're investigating a sex party that took place at Newcastle Cathedral. Apparently the Pope is upset that he wasn't invited, Paul.
Oh, well, yes. The Catholic Church is reportedly investigating the Bishop of Hexham, which is near Newcastle.
Is that a sexual position?
Yeah. Have you tried the Bishop of Hexham? And Newcastle's December resignation amid allegations. A lockdown sex party at a cathedral is being investigated by the Vatican as part of an inquiry regarding a former bishop that has been reported. Talk about bash the bishop. I mean, what's going on here, Leo? I mean, sex parties, lockdowns, the Catholic Church. None of this. By the way, in here, it never says at any point who was at the sex party.
Right.
So we don't know.
There is, a line
was
that...
Jesus there?
Well, he could well have been. He's everywhere.
A line that worries me is that there was the Northumbria Police's Child and Adult Protection Department was investigating, which, you know, it suggests there could be underage. I mean, it wouldn't be...
Well, so it's not the bishop who was a pedo. It looks like it was the father... whatever, one of the priests. And this guy he took his own life when there was a non-recent allegation of child sex abuse. So, well done, Catholic Church, for investigating yourself.
Again.
Finally.
It's a bit like the police.
But yeah, so I don't know who they're going to get to investigate this alleged party in the priest living quarter. I don't know if Sue Gray's available. She might come out of retirement or whatever she's doing. There's the guy he's called the Archbishop of Liverpool. The guy who's leading it, is called the Most Reverend. Is that a spelling mistake or is this?
I mean, they measured everybody's reverendness.
Yeah, and he was like,
the most
hey,
reverend.
It does sound street.
Most Reverend.
It does sound street, doesn't it? He's the most reverend. Right.
Respect to the Most Reverend.
Yeah. No, I mean, the fact I'm really uneasy about this story because it's called a sex party and we just don't know who was there.
It sounded fun. Until we actually looked at it, and then it took a very dark turn. Anyway, moving on to the Daily Mail now. They took a look at the murky world of online sperm banks. Well, of course they're murky, Josh. Awesome sperm.
Inside the murky world of online sperm banks where creepy men offer desperate women semen in exchange for sex. I'm sure that was a fun assignment.
Isn't that just how sex works?
They are playing fast and loose.
Would you like to? Yeah. So it said
some people take them out for dinner.
Here is the sperm for you. Yeah. So this is a very fun assignment that someone had to go online, and it said here these men present the traditional method of as a superior alternative to IVF. Now, I don't know if the traditional method is just men lying for sex, if that's what they mean by the traditional method. But and it says here, then meet some of the British men offering their sperm, and one was a guy who's got Jason, who claims to be a 50-year-old driving instructor from Nottingham. Why would anyone claim? I mean, how bad is your life if you've got to lie to be a driving instructor?
And a 50-year-old
in Nottingham. Oh, God, if they knew the truth about me, they really wouldn't want this sperm. This is terrible.
86-year-old.
And he said it would be just sex for that one thing. I'm sure he wouldn't have anything else to it. I'll take no pleasure in this, I promise.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, the profiles that they showed us in the article, it's a great article, but the profiles they showed were like some sleazy swingers club. In fact, I think it'd be healthier to take your missus down to the swingers club.
It's terrible, this, really, because it's preying on people desperately trying to have children. But it's literally just a guy saying, come to my living room and I will give you a baby.
Yeah.
The traditional way, which is best. You know, you can almost see the fingers going up, can't you? So,
don't talk about fingers.
Just the fingers. Anyway, moving on, we've got the Metro now, and the Brit Awards were made gender neutral after Sam Smith, the singer, complained that non-binary artists such as themselves were excluded. Now them and they are complaining that the gender neutral awards didn't feature enough women. I'm starting to think that there's no way to make these pronoun people happy.
Oh, this is madness, isn't it? In 100 years, actually, they're going to teach this as an example of when the progressive turkeys started voting for Christmas, because Sam Smith, this is the story, Sam Smith thinks it's a shame there are no women nominated for Best Artist at this year's Brit Awards. The non-binary songwriter was one of the first musicians to call for the abolishment of gender categories, and this resulted, as we all know, in the Brits taking action last year. So it was the first time that there were no gender awards last year. In fact, actually, I think it became Artist of the Year, which I believe Adele won last year.
Yeah.
But this was last year. They were voting in genders, and then they just called the award something else. This year's the first time it's no gender, and they're voting. It turns out that everyone's voting for their favourite man.
Yeah.
Essentially, and this was always going to happen. The trouble is, if you don't have two...
Are you saying men are better?
Not because men are better, Leo. I'm not saying that. We know the answer. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is, if you take away all categories, you're just going to vote for your favourite. And if you're, most people's... If you think your first 5 favourite artists now, most of them historically are going to be men. And it discriminates against women straight away.
Yeah,
again.
Well,
it does seem to be impossible to make. I mean, we've seen Owen Jones, Sam Smith, these people come out and say they demanded a non-binary Brit Awards, and then they were given a non-binary Brit Awards, and then they're like, oh, there's not enough women in it. It's like, well, then we'll have binary sections, and then we're back to where. I mean, what is going to make them happy?
No, well, nothing. That's why they are there and whatever. 12 of 71 artists eligible for the award were female. So, of course, then just statistically, that's the way it's going to work out. Yeah. And then he, she, they, whatever. Sorry, I just don't agree with it as an ideology. I think it's ridiculous.
You don't think Sam Smith is a beautiful
non-binary? No. Yeah. What is they, them? How if it could be quantified in any actual way, which it can't. Yeah, I made this brilliant interview in the Stonewall podcast, and then this person, this they them, was like, "Okay, well, define it for us." Just couldn't do it. Yeah. Like, you're a they them, and you can't even do it. How are we meant to define it? Yeah. Anyway, the point is,
Sam Smith's pronouns should be darts and player. Yeah, or pie
should be tri-keto.
Yeah, he looks like he's going to take on giant haystacks in a wrestling match.
Yeah, no, that's interesting outfits. Look, but that's fine. That's music. When he says here, they say here, when I was young, if I'd seen more queer people at these awards, it would have lit my heart. Excuse me.
Yeah, what
George Michael, Boy George, Elton John, Coolio.
Yeah. Easy.
I mean, this
Liam
is
Gallagher.
The Gallagher brothers, both of them, all of Blur. I mean, come on, man. How many more gay people do you need?
Yeah, it wasn't exactly, some sort of coal miners award ceremony.
Is anybody out there? Absolutely. And by the way, using the word queer is offensive to a lot of homosexual people.
Well, it seems to be a way that ostensibly straight people can come and steal some privilege points, some oppression points from the LGBTQ community. Yeah. So you see it in comedy. I mean, comedians like Sophie Hagen, she says she's never had a same-sex experience, but identifies as queer.
Never kissed a girl. Yeah. But I'm queer.
Yeah. And it seems. I mean, at least do something. You've got to put in some groundwork before you start, getting on that acronym.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if not kissing a girl makes you queer, I could be queer.
The Express now, and a street in London with a racist name is going to be renamed. Will this end racism forever, Josh?
Yes. Certainly on the London Street Black Boy Lane, don't clip that, to be renamed in aftermath of Black Lives Matter protest. So it's going to be renamed LaRose Lane after John LaRose, who founded New Beacon Books. It's one of the first Caribbean publishing houses in the UK. Sounds like a good guy. Sounds like he should be celebrated and should have a road named after him. It was called Black Boy Lane because it was after a 17th century pub. Now, this is where things get slightly tenuous. Because they were like, well, this pub was open during the time of slavery, so that's the connection. Is basically it's an old pub.
Right.
That doesn't make it racist in and of itself, but yeah, that doesn't sound like a great road.
What if people drank Guinness where the white is on the top of the
minority?
The black? Yeah. That's a racist drink.
Josh makes a really good point here. Always, when these stories come up once, twice, 3 times a year, the first question...
a lady.
Yes. Was it the Communards or was it Lionel Richie? I don't know. But... one thing I always look for is the origin story. Why was it called that in the first place? Josh already rightly pointed out that the street was named after the pub that was on the street.
Yeah.
And what they do say in the article is they don't know the origin of why the pub was named what it was named. So somebody has made a racist assumption in order to be offended.
I mean, it could be that it was originally racist. It doesn't sound particularly good now. Look, this guy, LaRose, sounds really great. Change the name of the road. I mean, I'm not that bothered about that.
It's not a hill we're going to die on. Anyway, that's it for part 3. In the final section, we discussed the Havana Syndrome, normalising Botox, and the solution to not getting mugged. We'll also recap tomorrow's front pages. See you in a couple of minutes.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us. We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. The Daily Star now, and Chicago's mayor has given advice to residents who are getting mugged for their money. Stop having money. Good advice, Paul?
Well, the idea is that if you don't have cash, you won't get mugged, but we'll get to that in a moment. Lori Lightfoot, who's the current Chicago mayor, has told residents that they should avoid using cash if they don't want to get mugged. One thing I would say is that, in my opinion, Lori Lightfoot is bonkers. If you want to entertain yourself, there's a video on YouTube called 8 Things That Lori Lightfoot Did to Make People Hate Her, worth a watch. It gives you a real good taste of where she's coming from. But this makes no sense to me, because unless we're all going to start wearing those badges that are on white vans overnight that sort of say there are no tools in this van overnight, i.e. there is no cash in these pockets during the day, then muggers aren't asking questions when they wander up to you, like, you know, how much cash you got on you. It's give me your money, give me what you got, whatever it might be. Give me a watch, give me a phone. They're not actually that interested in cash. No one uses cash anymore. You know, they're just... So I'm not sure this solves anything. I'm not sure what the point is here, other than unless she's in league with the WEF.
Well, yeah, and I think it was directed towards street vendors who are getting turned over by robbers. You know, they're selling hot dogs or whatever. And,
it's victim blaming. Yeah, it's like saying to women, "Don't wear a short skirt" or something. Like, "Oh, don't use cash, otherwise they're going to come up."
Good advice.
I'm saying that this person is an idiot, that she's got an election coming up soon, and this is obviously going to hurt her, because anybody sane is going to look at that and go, why don't you actually deal with the causes of the crime? What an interesting idea. Yeah. As opposed to dealing with this idea that it's somehow deterrent. And the fact is, cash is an important part of our economy, and as has been pointed out here, it disproportionately affects low-income people if there isn't cash around.
Yeah, this is. I mean, if you're Nadine Zahawi, there's lots of options to dodge your tax or avoiding tax avoidance.
Well, that's why
if you're poor, your only chance is stuffing cash under the mattress. So, yeah, I quite agree. Anyway, the Sunday Times reports on a mysterious sonic ray gun that's been zapping diplomats in Havana, George.
This is really interesting. It's been around for a while now. It's called, the headline is Havana Syndrome, Sonic Attack or All in the Mind. This was, in 2017, it was the first time, someone who was working for the American government in Cuba suddenly got headaches, heard a weird sound, and they were trying to go, is this some sort of audio attack? And since then, about 1,000 people have come forward, mostly working in different embassies, Canada.
For the US.
Yeah, for the US mostly, although Canadians have been affected as well. And this is a podcast that has kind of tried to get into all of this. To cut a long story short, one of the things that was put forward was, is it all in their mind? Is it some sort of mass, what do they call it? Like
mass psychosis.
But actually, what they're saying, it's actually probably microwaves. And this technology has been around for a while, and even though it doesn't create like audio that you can hear if you're not around it. But if it gets into your head, you will then hear something in your head.
Is it a weapon, or
it's absolutely a weapon? And someone's ended up disabled. Lots of people like had headaches. Someone's eye burst from it. So it's a real thing.
This is why microwaves have doors over them, because you don't want them getting out and going in your brain.
What's fascinating about this story to me is it is only affecting the people that are affected by it. I mean, there are other people in the room.
Right.
You know,
so they're quite concentrated and focused.
Well, yeah, when they went to Havana,
it
only affected the US diplomats.
And a woman spoke about standing in different parts of the corridor. In some parts she'd move, and then it would
then she went
her.
back into it, which is pretty stupid.
To test it, I mean, that's the first thing. Maybe they're not getting the best for the diplomats anymore. But anyway, moving on. Botox, rhinoplasty, turkey teeth. These aren't the names in the new Teletubbies. They are surgical procedures that are now incredibly commonplace, Paul. This is in the Metro.
It's never just about vanity. I think it might be, actually. But how Botox, filler and cosmetic surgery became the normal. In fact, according to those in the know, people regularly come back for more, and higher numbers of newbies are dipping their toes in. It doesn't say what they're dipping their toes into. They didn't go that far.
Probably one of those tanks with a fish in it that eat your skin.
Do you remember? They don't even do they do these anymore?
I don't know.
I never got to try that. Did you try it?
No, but I mean, the fish will still exist. They're not extinct, so we can
do
try
it ourselves.
Just have to go to a river.
It starts off by trying to convince me, the reader, that this is not just about vanity, but I would say it was in the high 90% of the reason that most people are doing it. I mean, I did a little sort of quick Google search to try and get some idea of whether it would be. And it is largely vanity. Now, people want to look good.
Yeah.
They're trying to retain their youth. I don't know why. I mean, as we can see, I mean, I'm not the right person to ask. I am literally growing old naturally, and maybe this is why people get Botox.
Paul is 23.
Yeah, Paul is 23, yeah, imagine.
I mean, Josh, what do you make of this? Would you...
Well, they talk here about an earlobe thing.
That's what I saw, the earlobe talk.
The earlobe rejuvenation. And you know what? It's a real problem, because I like a tight earlobe.
Look at the earlobes on there.
But there is a problem. I was walking around, I was doing some gigs in Liverpool, walking around the city centre, and there was like a big shop that sells makeup and stuff. And the people, normally it would be women of natural beauty who would be like the big posters everywhere. And it wasn't. It was this kind of identikit, normal-looking women who've had lots of plastic surgery, who've had the big lips, who have this certain look, where they obviously it's not authentic, and you're like, that's what's taken over, and that's what this article's sort of about, how beauty standards are changing, which is mental, because I just think it's really unattractive.
Yeah.
That's what the younger people now, they want that look.
Yeah, not everybody's as lucky as you to be naturally beautiful, Josh. Anyway, we're going to see if we can fit one in before we go to the top, the roundup of the stories. We've got the Mail and some bizarre laws still in existence in the UK. These actually worry me, because half of them seem to be variations on saying it's legal to shoot a Scotsman on the beach at low tide with a crossbow, Josh.
It's not legal? No. It seems like it might be done. Did you know it's illegal to fly a kite in public, carry a plank of wood on the pavement, and not let someone use your loo if they knock on your door? 16 bizarre laws in England and Scotland. The first one is pretty amazing. Being drunk in a pub is illegal.
I've broken that one, Josh.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you don't get served once you're drunk. So that does kind of make sense. Anyway, we're going to do a recap of Monday's front pages before we go. Monday's Mail has a shocking rise of something for nothing Britain. All those scroungers making the Mail angry. And me, to be honest. Monday's Telegraph has National Grid ready to pay customers to switch off. Monday's Eye has energy firms hit back at prepay meter ban with threat of higher bills. Monday's Guardian has Britain forecast to reach £1 trillion export target 15 years late in the wake of Brexit. Monday's Mirror has a useful guide for Tories. They still don't get it. Absolutely no idea what that is about. They should really make headlines that make sense. Monday's Metro has Boris bank chum. We covered that earlier. Monday's Star has fury at price rises, taking the peas. And those are your front pages, and that's it for this evening. Thanks to my brilliant guests, Josh Howie and Paul Cox. Headliners is back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Simon Evans, Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. If you're watching this at 5 a.m, then stay tuned for The Breakfast Show coming up next. And we're on every night at 11 p.m, and we're available on YouTube, digital audio, radio, DAB,
Phil,
and on the app as well. So you can get us everywhere. There's no excuse not to watch. See you soon. Bye.